Good morning, good evening, everybody. So today's topic is PostgreSQL high performance tuning and optimization. So I will not waste much of your time that who am I. So, but for the reference, my name is Ibrar Ahmad. I am senior database architect at Percona. I have 21, 22 years of software development experience with 14 years of PostgreSQL experience. I have two books, PostgreSQL Developer's Guide and PostgreSQL 9.6 High Performance. You can get these books from Amazon. So, agenda. So today's agenda is we will discuss about the database performance, the key feature we have to consider while we are configuring our database or for the database performance. The second, we will discuss the module of PostgreSQL. And the third, we will tune PostgreSQL for high performance. After that, we will discuss how to tune Linux kernel for PostgreSQL high performance. At the end, we will discuss the questions from the audience. So timeline for 5 minutes for the PostgreSQL performance and 5 minutes for PostgreSQL module, 20 minutes for PostgreSQL tuning and 20 minutes for Linux tuning. After that, 5 minutes for just for the tips and 5 minutes for the question answer session. So database performance. So here are the 6 key features that we have to consider while we are thinking about our database performance. The first one is the hardware. If you don't have anything, but you have a bigger hardware or you have a money to a bigger hardware, then you can have a better database performance. But there is always a limit. You cannot spend infinity amount of money in the hardware to have a better database performance. So if you touch that limit that you cannot buy a bigger hardware, a better hardware for the database, then you have to consider the software to tune your software to have a better performance on the same hardware. The second thing is the operating system. So it's really important to choose a better operating system for your database. We have a variety of operating system in software industry like Linux, Windows, Solaris, HP UX. We have a different kind of operating system. So you have to choose your operating system wisely while using that operating system for your as a database server. And then you have to think about the database. What kind of a database you required for your system? So if you have, we will discuss only here the PostgreSQL, then you have to tune your PostgreSQL server for the better performance. Then tune your application. What does that mean, tune your application? If you are sending too many queries to the database and getting that data and filter the data at application end, that is a bad application. Or if you are connecting and disconnecting too much to the database, and it will also affect the performance of database. So you have to write your application, or you have to choose the application which is using database wisely. Then the workload. So it's all depends on your workload, how you tune your database. Is it, you have to think it's OLTP or OLAP, or what kind of a database you have, or what kind of a workload you have. So you have to tune your workload accordingly. Then you have to tune your queries. In your application, if you write a bad queries on a very well tuned database, then you will not get any performance from the database, because you are tuning your database for the better performance, but you have to write your queries in a better way. Here I put an example of really bad query, which is select static from foo. We don't know the size of the table foo, and we are selecting all the columns from foo where we don't have any where clause and we don't have any columns name there. So it has many problems in this query. The query has many problems. So we have to write the query very wisely to use the database optimally. So PostgreSQL module. So before tuning the PostgreSQL, we have to learn the architecture of PostgreSQL. I will not go in very detail of the architecture of PostgreSQL, but here I have divided it into 4 sections. If you see, sorry, 5 sections. First section is the clients. It's your application. It can be a pSQL client. It can be a JDBC client written in Java. It can be a ODBC, which is written in C. And so it can be any client. So that client. And the second one is the processes. PostgreSQL has a process postmaster, which is running as a default port 5432. And whenever any client connects to that port, then it spawns another Postgres process, and that process is used for the communication with the client. So when you see in the process, you can see a postmaster process, a Postgres process, and wall writer, archiver, or logger, a background writer, and checkpointer. These are the running processes. But when you connect your applications to the PostgreSQL postmaster, then it will spawn a one Postgres per client. Suppose you have 50 clients connected to PostgreSQL, you can see up 50 Postgres processes running in the background. So you can see that using the PS command. So the third section is the disk management. PostgreSQL have a PG data directory. This is the directory where the whole cluster resides. The PostgreSQL whole cluster resides in this directory. And it has a base folder where all the database files reside. It has a global where all the global tables reside, or global thing resides. So it has a PG wall directory where all the PG wall files resides. Then we have a folder. In the main folder, you have a configuration file like postgresql.conf or pghpa.conf. But if you don't want to use that PG data directory to have your table stored in PG data directory, you can create a table space on another directory and you can create tables in that table space. So it's up to you. So we have then PostgreSQL, another module we can discuss, which is a memory management of PostgreSQL. In PostgreSQL, use shared buffer for its memory management. And it also have a wall buffer. We will discuss shared buffer, wall buffer, work mem, and maintenance work mem in this next session. These are all memory management parameter. We have to tune that parameter for the optimum performance of PostgreSQL. Then the next module is the kernel memory. As we know that PostgreSQL use double buffering, that PostgreSQL has its own buffering system, and it also use the operating system buffering mechanism. So we have to learn the operating system buffer management. And in this webinar, we will only discuss the Linux here. No other operating system we will discuss in this webinar. So our next topic is PostgreSQL performance tuning. So in the performance tuning, it's mostly about the tuning the parameter of PostgreSQL. The first parameter is the most important parameter, which is the shared buffers. Then we will discuss the wall buffers, effective cache size, and maintenance work mem, synchronous commit, checkpoint timeout, and checkpoint completion target. So our first parameter is shared buffer. So PostgreSQL use its own buffer along with kernel buffer IO. I already told you that Linux kernel has its own buffering system, and PostgreSQL does not is use that buffering system. But PostgreSQL also has its own buffer, which is called shared buffer, and this whole thing is called double buffering. One is PostgreSQL using its own buffer, and one buffer is used by the kernel, which Linux kernel. So it's called double buffering. PostgreSQL writes the data to the shared buffer. It's also cache. You can call it a cache or buffer. And the background process write that these buffer belongs to the kernel buffer. So whenever we write a PostgreSQL write data, it writes data into shared buffer, and this shared buffer and as a background process, write these blocks to the kernel buffer, and then these kernel buffer data return to the disk. So this parameter, if you see the default value, you can run a psql, and then you can issue a command show shared buffer, then you can see the shared buffer value, it's 128 MB. So as a tip, what should be the value of shared buffer? So Bruce Momjan, everybody I think who knows the PostgreSQL know this guy. The proper size of the PostgreSQL shared buffer cache is the largest useful size that does not adversely affect your database activity. That means if you have a dedicated computer for the database, and you have to use you can use aggressively the value of shared buffer, because it will not affect the other application, because there is no other application other than database. Like most people recommend that 25% of your memory should be shared buffer, but I have seen in the environment that people are using 50 to 60% of their memory to the shared buffer and getting really good performance on the database. So the tip is very useful if you use that. So here I have done some benchmark for the shared buffer. If you see in the bottom, you can see it's shared buffer size, and the y-axis, in x-axis is the shared buffer size, and y-axis is the TPS. So, and initially when I benchmark, if I am on the 128 MB shared buffer, I am getting only 500 transactions per second. And I start increasing the shared buffer size, I am getting really good performance. But you see, at 4 GB, approximately 4 GB, we are not getting any more performance gain. Why? The problem, it's not a problem, because our whole workload, which is we are using in the querying the database, fits in the memory of the 4 GB. Like we have a 4 GB workload, and when our shared buffer was 128 MB, we are getting not good performance. But when we have a 4 GB of shared buffer and our workload is 4 GB, then the complete workloads fit in the shared buffer and we are getting the optimum performance. So when we are increasing that to 8 GB or 16 GB, then there will be no gain in that, because the workload is already in the memory. The complete workload is already in the memory. So there is no need to increase that. So that's what I want to show you here, that you have to tune this parameter shared buffer very carefully. The second parameter is a wall buffer. So do you have a transaction? Obviously, yes. So write ahead log your transaction. So size of the wall files are 16 MB with 8K block sizes. So it's an exception that you can change that at compile time, but for that you need a custom build for that. So by default, it's 16 MB with 8K block size. So PostgreSQL writes wall into the buffers, and which is called a wall buffers. And then these buffers are flushed to the disk. So bigger values for the wall buffer in case of a lot of concurrent connection give better performance. So you can keep that value as a default value if you don't have too many concurrent connection. So, but if you have too many concurrent connection, a bigger value gives you the better performance. So next one is the effective cache size, and this parameter is used by the optimizer of PostgreSQL. It estimate the size of the kernel disk buffer cache and make sure this parameter is just a guideline. Like if you compare that with shared buffer, when you give any value to shared buffer, that memory is used when you start your PostgreSQL. That value will be consumed by PostgreSQL at the start of PostgreSQL. But this value, the effective cache size, will not be allocated. So it is just a guideline and not the exact allocate memory or cache size. What should be the value of that? It should be large enough to hold most access tables, but at the same time small enough to avoid swap. So next one is the workmem. The configuration is used for complex sorting. So it allows PostgreSQL to do larger in-memory sort. So if your system has a complex sorting and your queries are not working very good, that means your workmem is low. You need to increase your workmem. But be careful. The shared memory or shared buffer, when you allocated that, it allocates only once. But the workmem, when you give any value to workmem, it multiplies by the number of sorting it's happening at the time. So you have to be very careful. For example, each value is per session based. That means if you set that values to 10 MB and 10 users issue sort queries, then 100 MB will be allocated. So that means you set that value to 10 MB and 10 user in concurrently 10 user at the same time issue a sort queries, then 100 MB will be allocated. So in case of merge sort, which is a complex sort, if X number of tables are involved, and this time it's not about the session, and within the same session, if merge sort is happening and X number of tables are involved in the sort, then X multiplied by workmem will be used. So be careful by increasing the workmem value. It is not the value you put in the configuration file. It always the multiplier of the session when queries are running, the sort queries are running. So you have to be very careful when you're setting this value. And good thing is it will allocate it when it's required. So when you see in your explain plan, sort method, external merge disk, this value, that means it's where you need to increase your workmem. Mostly I see increasing this value, remove this, and you will get the better performance. I will give you an example here. I set the workmem 2 MB. So set workmem 2 MB, and then I did explain, analyze, select static from foo. Foo is a table, ordered by ID, ID is a column. So here you can see a gather merge has happened, and the sort method external merge disk is, you can see what I have told you in the previous slide, that sort method external merge is 8 MB of that worker 1 and worker 2. This is happening. And you can see the time, it's 13 seconds. So I just changed set workmem to 1 GB and issue the same foo. You can see the explain plan has changed now. There is no sort method external merge disk, and the time reduced to half, 7.7 seconds. So increasing this value will give you the better performance for the sorting. But you have to be careful. You should not out of memory by changing this value too high and multiple concurrent processes are running the sort queries and you are out of memory. The next parameter is maintenance workmem. Maintenance workmem is a memory setting used for maintenance tasks. So you have many maintenance tasks like vacuum, restore, create index, add foreign key, alter table. So this memory is used for this kind of a task. The default value is 64 MB. I usually use this value when I required a maintenance. It's also a session based. So when I required something to do, I change this value, I'd use that and reset that to its default. So here I set that value to 10 MB, set maintenance work mem is equal to 10 MB, show maintenance work mem 10 MB. Then I have created an index IDX foo, which is the name of the index on foo table. ID is a column name. So it took 12 seconds to create an index. So in the next, I change that to 1 GB. And you can see when I created an index, same index on the table, it took only 9 seconds. So it's not too much improvement, but you have seen the improvement that index is created faster than previous example. So it all depends how much memory it required. So you can change maintenance work mem on the fly and do your maintenance work mem and reset that value, because you're not doing maintenance things like creating an index or vacuuming too often. If you're doing that, you can change that, you can reset that. But if you set that value into your configuration file and you have too many issue in a multiple terminal, you issue create index or like maintenance start different session, that it will multiply by that sessions. So it will, you should not be out of memory in that case too. The next parameter is synchronous commit. This is used to enforce that commit will wait for a while to be written on disk before returning a success status to the client. So what is this? This is used to enforce that commit will wait for a while. That means a commit, when you issue a commit, that it will wait that value to be returned to the disk, then it will return the success status to client. So this is a trade-off. If you do a synchronous commit, it will delay, it will introduce some kind of a delay, but it will enhance the reliability. But if you turn off this value, then it will increase the performance, but you will lose some reliability, because it will return the success before confirming that data is already written on the disk or not. So increasing reliability, decreasing performance, and vice versa. Synchronous commit does not introduce the risk of corruption. It will not corrupt you, which is really bad. It just some risk of data loss. So it's from the PostgreSQL wiki. So checkpoint timeout. So I think most of you know about what is the checkpoint. Checkpoint, PostgreSQL write changes into the wall. We already know that. The checkpoint process flush the data into the data file. More checkpoints have a negative impact on performance. Like if you don't want to write your while to return to the disk too often, then you should have this value a very big. Like people use that on days like 24 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours. So, but frequent checkpoint reduce the, but if you have a very big time, then you have, think about that, it will increase the recovery time. So frequent checkpoint introduce the performance impact on that in the system, but it reduces the recovery time. So it's again a trade-off. If you do a checkpoint too often, then your recovery time will be reduced, but it will impact the performance. But if you have checkpoint time too big, then your recovery time will be more, but your performance will be good. So you have to choose in between. So the next module is Linux tuning for PostgreSQL. So I already told you that what is a direct IO, buffered IO, or a double buffer. I will repeat it. When an application directly writes to the disk without using its own buffer or operating system buffer, it's called direct IO. And when an application directly writes to the kernel operating system kernel buffer and that kernel buffer written to the disk, it's called buffered IO. And when an application has its own buffer and that buffer is written to the kernel buffer, and then this kernel buffer written to the disk is called double buffering. And PostgreSQL use double buffering. PostgreSQL believes that operating system, any operating system kernel, knows much better about storage and IO scheduling. PostgreSQL has its own buffering and also need the page cache double buffering. It increases the use of memory. It's a side effect that it increases the use of side effects. And another side effect of that different kernel behave differently. That if you run PostgreSQL on a Windows environment, its kernel is handling of buffer internally is different in Windows and in Linux. So PostgreSQL depends on that. So in an application, every process is given the impression that it has a contiguous section of memory. Like every application, like in this case PostgreSQL, feel that it has a continuous section of memory. Each process runs its own dedicated space. So there are page tables which are used to translate the virtual address into the physical address of the memory. Why we have discussed this? In the next couple of slides, we will study why we are looking at the virtual memory. If you want to read the virtual memory, then there is a link in the bottom that from the wiki where you can read what is virtual memory, how it works, and how the world page table works. So here another thing which is called a TLB, translation look-aside buffer. Translation look-aside buffer is a memory cache. It reduces the time to access a user memory location. If a match is found, the physical address of the page is written TLB hit, otherwise TLB miss. So it's a cache. It's a buffer cache. The small page size, if you have a small page size, so that means your memory has a too many pages. If you have a too many pages, then a large translation look-aside buffer. And when you have a large translation look-aside buffer, then it requires more time to check the cache. So to cope this problem, different operating systems has different size of pages. So normally in Linux, the page size is 4K. So think about if you have, for example, you have a 1 GB of RAM, then you can think about how many 4K pages it can have. So you have to calculate how big TLB you required. So if TLB is too big, then it's searching in the TLB is slow down the system. So for cope this problem, Linux has a concept of classic huge pages and a transparent huge pages. We will discuss how these impact the database. BSD has super pages. Windows has a large pages. Keep in mind, PostgreSQL only supports Linux huge pages. There is no support for BSD and Windows large pages or super pages. So Linux page size is 4K. normally when we are working on the Linux is a 4K. But Linux has a concept of huge pages, and it has two kind of a huge pages, and there's two size of two size of a huge pages, 2 megabyte and 1 gigabyte. It's really odd that this one is 2 megabyte, which is our normal size, and 1 gigabyte, so too big, and there is no other in between. So you have a two kind of a large huge pages, and we call it a classic huge pages. So if you get your proc meninfo, then you can see a 2 MB, a 4K, 2 MB, and 1 GB huge pages. And you can always set your huge pages size. VMNR huge pages is equal to 256, any value to that, using the sysctl command. So classic huge pages. So if you want to set this value to use that 1 GB or 2 MB, you have to change your grub setting. Here you can see Vim etc default grub, and you can see 1 GB default huge pages is 1 GB. Then you have to update your grub, and then you have to reboot your computer. When you reboot your computer, you will see that 1 gigabit of huge pages can be used. So you can set that value to 2 MB or 1 giga. So anyone can be set at one time. So why we have discussed classic huge pages? Because PostgreSQL support classic huge pages. If you require very good performance, then it's really good thing. So you can go into the postgresql.com file, and you can see a huge pages parameter, and default value is try. What is this try mean? Try mean PostgreSQL will try on the operating system that operating system supports huge pages or not. If yes, then it will use that internally. But if it's not, then it will not fail. It will start and will not use the huge pages. So default is try. But if you want to use huge pages in any case, then you can set it on. That means if operating system has huge pages, the system will use that. If operating system does not have a huge pages concept enabled, then it will fail and PostgreSQL will not start. So this parameter required a restart. So after that, setting the huge pages, PostgreSQL have concept of huge pages. Linux introduce another concept, which is transparent huge pages. What is the transparent huge pages? That when you are using application, you have to write your code to use the classic huge pages. For 1 GB, 2 GB, you have to write, and PostgreSQL have that code internally, which is handling. But Linux introduced a concept that any application can use transparent huge pages. So whenever some contiguous memory is unable, operating system have the contiguous memory, it allocate huge pages, and that huge pages can be used. So a process So a process which is kh huge page d, k huge page d, create a huge page, automatically find enough contiguous block of memory, convert them into the huge pages. So we don't need to worry. PostgreSQL don't need to worry. Any application don't need to worry. It's enable, disable, it automatically will use like a 4K pages. It will automatically use. So if you see, you can go and anonymous huge pages, and you can grab, you can see the values, all the values here. I don't want to discuss. You can see the value. You can go to your computer. You can echo the values, enable and disable the transparent huge pages. So one thing I want to discuss, that we should disable transparent huge pages. Why? It is not for the best database performance. I have also seen many blog posts for the Oracle, MySQL, MongoDB. All are recommending that transparent huge pages are no benefit for the database. Even it affects the database. I did a benchmark for classic huge pages and transparent huge pages. For classic huge pages, I got really good performance. But for the transparent huge pages, I haven't got any benefit from transparent huge pages. So it's recommendation that you should enable classic huge pages, but disable transparent huge pages. To disable, just echo never to enable in transparent huge pages kernel parameter. And you can also set that in the grub command line. The next parameter is swappiness. This is another kernel parameter that can affect the performance of the database. This is used to control the swappiness. Swappiness. What is the swappiness? Swappiness is a buffer use when it's again used to control the swappiness pages to swap the pages from disk to the RAM. So how much your RAM and disk swappiness occurs in your system? It controls this value, and default is 60. So value is from 0 to 100. So if you change that value to the higher value like 90, 80, 70, then it's more aggressively write RAM to the disk and disk to the RAM. It's more swappiness happening. So when you set that value to the very low, then less swappiness will be happening. But that means more memory will be used. So I did a benchmark also on that, and very low value of swappiness give really good performance of database. So VM overcommit memory and VM overcommit ratio. What is this? Application acquire memory. We already know that application acquire memory, and most of the time, some developer or did a mistake, or some application does not require that memory. They just allocate that memory and they are not using that memory, or there is no longer needed. So in that case, kernel plays a really intelligent thing. What is this? That when process require a memory, the kernel give them the memory even that memory is not available in the kernel. What is the? It's overcommit. Like kernel has only 1 GB of memory and application 1 GB of memory left, and application asks 1.2 GB of memory. The kernel give that memory to the application. But when this actual required, that application required 1.2, then kernel go to the memory management and see if it's available or not. So at the time it overcommit that, but when actually used, then it required that. So it's really one thing. If it's overcommit at 1.2 GB, it gave the 1.2 GB to the application, then if it's not available at the time of using, then your application will crash. There is a process OOM, out of memory killer. It will kill your application. So we can control this. So if we set the overcommit, it gives it the performance benefit, but it has some drawback that you can be killed by the OOM. This is used to control the memory overcommit. It has 3 options. By default is the heuristic kernel based value. It's set, it should overcommit or it should not overcommit, which is value is 0. Allow overcommit anyway, but it's really dangerous. It's a 1. It's really dangerous. That means whenever an application or PostgreSQL asks for memory and kernel does not have that, that kernel will overcommit that memory. But when that application actually requires and kernel does not have that, then it will OOM will kill that. So it's really dangerous. So you have to be careful. The third value is, which is 2, don't overcommit beyond the overcommit ratio. That's really intelligent. That you always overcommit except beyond the overcommit ratio. There is another parameter which is overcommit ratio. So set this value to 2 and set your overcommit ratio. That you set that value that you can overcommit, but not beyond this overcommit ratio value. So there are 2 parameters, which is intelligent, and PostgreSQL recommend to use don't overcommit beyond the overcommit ratio, which is 2, and it will give you the good performance and avoid the OOM killer. No. So VM dirty background ratio and VM dirty background bytes. The VM dirty background ratio is the percentage of memory filled with dirty pages that need to be flushed to disk. So dirty pages are accumulated in the memory and it needs to be flushed to disk, and this value control this. Mean if this percentage of memory is filled with dirty pages, then write these pages to the disk. So if you set this value of very low, then it's dirty pages continuously then return to the flush to disk, and it's impact the performance. But if you set this value big, then larger memory will be used and larger chunk will be returned to the disk. But this all thing is happening in the background. That's why it's called dirty background ratio or dirty background bytes. It can be a ratio, it can be a bytes. You can set ratio or bytes. So it's a background process. That means when this flushing is going on, your application will not stop. It's a background process. It's always running. It will do that for you in the background. So dirty ratio or dirty bytes is 100% similar concept like dirty background ratio or dirty background bytes, but the background is removed. So this parameter is doing flushing in a foreground. That means when flushing is going on, dirty pages flushing to the disk is going on, then the upper application is stuck till it's returned. So its value is also from 0 to, it's because if you're talking about only the ratio, then it's 0 to 100. It's because a percentage, so it's 1%, 2% of the memory, so you can set this. So for the tuning PostgreSQL database, I have a blog for this, which is parameter to optimize the performance. You can go to this blog, Percona blog post. And for the Linux kernel parameter tuning, you can also go to another blog for this. So I have not mentioned 2 blogs where I have done the huge pages benchmark and the transparent huge pages benchmark. So I will also share these blogs with you. So if you have any question, so you can ask. Kim.
All right, thank you, everyone. We did have a couple questions come in, so let me get those going for us. Oh, okay. How can we reduce replication lag?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
How can we reduce replication lag?
Okay. Well, we have not discussed the replication and replication things here, but replication lags mostly depends on your network and your configurations. So PostgreSQL has some lags, but you have to use if you don't, because it depends which kind of replication you are using. You can use asynchronous or asynchronous. It all depends on you. How to reduce that? It's not a simple one-line answer that how to reduce that, because it depends if you have what kind of replication you are using, logical, streaming, or synchronous or asynchronous replication.
Okay. What is meant by compile time?
Okay, what is the main compile time? Mostly in the webinar, the people are from the DBA background because they usually get this from Yum repository or apt-get repository PostgreSQL. But when we are talking about the compile, then you can go to the PostgreSQL site, download the code and compile it yourself. Then in compile, when you are compiling, you can provide this option that change this page size. In there, you can change the page size. So it's most like a developer, you can ask your company where you are getting this support from the PostgreSQL, or you are providing that you can get a custom build for that. But mostly it's not used to change the, people are not changing the pages. It's a compilation, PostgreSQL compilation time changes.
Okay, thank you. Why is there data loss with synchronous commitments?
It's not the data loss. It's synchronous commit mean that you are committing and at that time the system crash. That means at that data is being lost. It's not like the synchronous commit will introduce the crash loss. Synchronous commit is not introducing the data loss. It's just the point was I think mentioning the wiki page tip that synchronous commit is not introducing the loss. Synchronous, when you're doing a synchronous commit and your system is crashed, so that commit value or this value or has been lost, not the data is not corrupted. But in other case, it is chances that the whole database is corrupted and will not start. So it's a benefit of that that transaction will be lost, not the whole. So it's not introducing any loss.
Okay, so we've got a couple more come through. Which Linux distribution do you recommend for Postgres? And is it better to use Postgres on Linux or Windows?
Postgres on Linux, definitely on Linux, because it's use a native libraries of Linux. And for the Windows, is using the Sigwin and MinGW libraries. So I don't recommend that to use that on Windows. So it's definitely Windows. It can be a Ubuntu, it can be a CentOS, or it can be a Red Hat flavor if you have that. But definitely no for Windows. And importantly, you don't have all the extensions available for Windows also. So that's another valid point to not to use the Windows.
Okay, which connection pooling tool would you recommend?
pgbouncer, definitely pgbouncer, not pgpool. pgbouncer is really efficient. I did a benchmark on different pgpool, different poolers, and pgbouncer is one of the best one. So,
okay, how do you calculate TPS in Postgres?
pgbench. PostgreSQL has a tool, a benchmarking tool, which is called pgbench. So you can use that pgbench and you can calculate the TPS.
Okay. Are there guidelines for the amount of active databases in a single Postgres instance, since shared buffers and other are global?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
That's complicated. Are there guidelines for the amount of active databases in a single Postgres instance?
Guideline, actually, I gave you the link of my parameter optimization blog. You can see this because there is no single guideline for the all type of hardware. It depends on hardware workload, then we can provide the actual value for the best performance. But they mostly try to load your workload in a shared buffer, but don't use that much memory that you cannot do another task on that system.
Okay, so we've gotten a lot of questions and some of them are pretty complex. So I'm trying to kind of pick through ones that I think you can I answer on the call, but I do want to let everyone know that submitted that I will send these more in-depth questions over to Brar so he can answer them directly. How can we control work memory so that users should not aren't able to misuse it?
User should not misuse it. Actually, when you set that on your session, then that session will use that amount of workman. So it cannot be misused. But if you set this value into your configuration file, and which is definitely not accessible to all the users, it must be with the super user access. Then it's you have to don't need to give that access to your normal users.
Okay. Okay, so the rest of the questions are pretty involved, so I'm going to stop it there. And Brar, I will send these over to you, and then we'll get together a blog along with the recording for everyone that answers all of the questions. I want to thank you all for joining us, and just give a quick shout out that Percona Live Europe is going to be taking place October 20th to 21st. It's a 28-hour session. It's free, and we would love to see you there. There's information on our website, and I will drop something quick into the chat so that you guys can sign up if you want. Actually, there's a link in there already. So if you're interested in signing up, just click on that link in the chat window and you should be able to go and register. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us today. And Brar, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.